and welcome to episode number 3 of the 77 Group's YouTube channel that specializes on communication and leadership training. And we hope that you've seen the first 2 episodes, but if you have not, we welcome you to this one from, I might add, the iconic, lovely Granada Hotel and Bistro in the heart of downtown San Luis Obispo, California. My name is Frank Leone, for those of you that haven't seen the previous videos. And just a brief word about me. I had a long career. I had my own company for 31 years. Before that was at the Rand Corporation in Santa Monica, California, and at a hospital as a hospital administrator in Massachusetts. Did an awful lot of public speaking, educational training, and different kinds of communication, did special courses on communication, thus my interest in the topic. Mitch Goddard and I are old colleagues from a number of years ago, and we felt that our areas of expertise would blend well with one another. So Mitch, do you want to introduce yourself and maybe tell everybody a little bit about the 77 Group?
Sure. My name is Mitch Goddard. I speak to the topic of leadership, and my background includes the Department of Defense, food and hospitality, and even healthcare, where I was privileged to lead a number of high-performing teams in all those different industries, and with over 40 years background in leadership, I think that I've got something to share. And as Frank said, the two, leadership, communication, really blend well and piggyback very well off each other. And we hope that you'll find value in our presentations each week. Now, talking about the 77 Group, we, both Frank and I, as we've grown close, we're not only business partners, we're very close and dear friends, and which really means, puts more oomph really behind our work together. And we settled on the 77 Group as a name of our enterprise. Because 1977 has such significant meaning to both Frank and I and our spouses over our many years together. 1977, within a period of 5 days in the spring of 1977, is when Frank and I first met our wives and have been happily married ever since. And I think we both agree that any success that we've enjoyed in our lives have a lot to do with the women in our lives.
No question about that.
Amen. Amen. So with that, I'll kick it back over to you, Frank.
So a word or two about our YouTube plan. I just recently published a book. It's probably not going to be officially available until the middle of April, depending upon when you're watching this, April of 2020. But it is 77, we're keeping with the 77 Group theme, 77 ways to enhance your communication skills, both in enhancing your professional and personal relationships. Mitch is doing a sister volume, 77 Tips for Effective Leadership. And we felt that it would be a very, very good adjunct to go over each of these 77 chapters one week after another on a YouTube channel, so that people could get the benefit of our thoughts and insights from another modality as well as from the book itself, understanding that you don't have to have the book to enjoy and participate in the YouTube episodes, and you don't have to, if you have the book, you don't have to be part of the episodes at all. But in a perfect world, you could do both. And that's our hope, that a lot of people will have the book and also tune into the episodes, and that we might be able to make a difference with a lot of people. So that's the plan. The plan is that alternating weeks, Frank will do a chapter in his book, then Mitch a chapter in his book. We're up to week 3. I am now doing my second presentation. This happens to be chapter 24 of my book. I might also add that as we're going through this, we want to have a little bit of fun. It's not all content. And we invite everybody to submit questions on the comments section that's under the screen that you're watching this presentation on, whatever it may be. We're going to give an award out each week for the question of the week, the best question that we get on a content issue, and the best fun question that we get on anything that you would consider a fun question to us. And I might also add that we have a website, www.77grp, 77groupabbreviated.com, and any question that comes in, not necessarily the fun ones, but the content ones, we will answer and keep on the website forevermore. So in our opinion, it's the best way to bring in everybody into the process and ensure that as few questions as possible are left unanswered. Okay, off we go. This week I'm doing chapter 24, and the chapter 24 is entitled Proof, 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 and Proof Again. And the whole point here is never get lazy with your commitment to review things in writing that you've written. I absolutely recoil when I get things in writing from somebody that has notable errors, notable typos, misspellings that are obvious to anybody, and it's clear to me that they just wrote it as quickly as they can and sent it out without really thinking. And I think it demeans from the inherent message, and I think it doesn't put them in the best possible light that they should be put in. So that's important. So I have 5 tips. And the first tip is to proof everything, but not just once. Proof everything at least twice. And by everything I mean a text message, an email, a larger correspondence, a group correspondence.
Especially those group correspondences.
Right,
Those can really be embarrassing.
They can be very embarrassing.
Yep.
Or a book,
Yep.
or anything in between, a journal article, whatever it may be. Proof it, and then at least proof it one more time. That's 3 proofs. And it makes a big difference, because then you are much more likely to come out error-free, and error-free supports your message and also doesn't make you look bad. So that's my first tip, is proofing multiple times.
So, with your book that's just come out, the 77 Ways to Perfect Your Communication, how many times, because I know I got to watch from the sidelines, how many times would you say your back and forth was not only for your own proof, but with the editors that we worked with?
Well, this is for the book itself, but it certainly helps. I mean, I've always been blessed in my company. I had my own company for 31 years, and for the vast percentage of that time, I had 2 extraordinary writers, journalists, and editors that basically looked at everything I did and actually converted me from a dumb guy to a smart guy in the snap of a finger. Shout out to Karen O'Hara and Isabel Walker, love you both, to say the least. But it really made a big difference. But the point is don't be shy about seeking outside review of what you've done. The ultimate goal is to get your message across as effectively as you possibly can. And if you can eat a little bit of humble pie by asking other people to take a look at it and to tell you what may or may not be pristinely correct, you're coming out ahead.
Sure. And with that, to allocate the time or invest the time to do that, to really chisel it down and make it just so it aligns with your message.
Yeah, episode 1, when I talked about brevity in shopping, that's what that was all about. That involved proofing as well, proofing to get extraneous fat out of your written communication, and ultimately your verbal communication as well. This goes beyond that, as I'll touch in subsequent tips this morning, to other things as well, but basically proofing it to make sure that overall it's the best possibly constructed message that you can be sending.
Very good.
Okay,
what's your next tip?
That's number 1. Number 2, and this is a very important one, I could talk for the whole period on just this one, is structure anything in writing in 3 phases: a beginning, a middle, and an end. And you take a look at almost anything. You take a look at a good movie. They tend to be formulaic. There tends to be a sort of a classic way the movies begin, a classic way that they end, and sort of a classic process through the middle. Or a good symphony. Symphonies start out with a certain oomph and end with even more of an oomph. I remember a number of years ago, I think back in the 1990s, the great Willie Nelson came to Santa Barbara, and my wife and I went to hear Willie. We were in row 6, there's incredible seats there. And I remember the curtain opened, and his whole group was right in the middle, and they just boomed out right the first second, On the Road Again, one of his classic songs. So he started almost right from the top, one of his great songs with enormous pep. It immediately instilled pep in the audience, And then guess what? The last 2 or 3 songs he did were also his best songs ever with a lot of pep. So you started with pep, you ended with pep, and then you had ups and downs throughout the rest of the presentation. So I like to think of those as basically a metaphor for anything that you write. To set the stage, to state what you need to say, and then to summarize it at the end. And something I've often said is that what you say at the beginning, whether it's in verbally or whether it's in writing, and what you say at the end, whether it's verbally or in writing, is absolutely equally as important as everything in between, although it may take up only 5% of the total time. You set that stage properly, you end it strongly, and the communication is going to be that much stronger.
So why do you think the power of that intro and that ending, the crescendo at the end, why do you think those really resonate with people or capture their attention?
The first thing is to go back to those that are old enough to remember the old shampoo commercial. You only have one chance to make a good first impression.
Right.
You're establishing that street cred right off the bat, and you better do it good. On the back end, and it's an old saying, but it's totally true, is that people tend to the thing people tend to remember most is what you're saying to them as you're walking out the door.
Right.
It's the last sentence in a written correspondence, the last paragraph in a book, et cetera, et cetera. It's got to be strong. If you've only gotten them halfways on your side from everything you said before, you can still win the ball game at the end with a strong bottom of the 9th inning.
There you go. Excellent. Excellent. Thanks.
Okay, so that's number 2. Number 3 is when you're reviewing, when you're proofing, try to ensure a logical flow of ideas. And this is something that if you look at anything that anybody writes, look at your next, you'll get dozens of emails tomorrow. Look at most of them and sort of say to yourself, is this a logical flow? Does paragraph 1 lead to a bridge to number 2, to number 3, to number 4, and then to number 5? Or is it somebody throwing mud against the wall? Well, you don't want to throw mud against the wall. You want to have a little bridge between everything so they're all ultimately interconnected to achieve the ultimate purpose that you're trying to do. So you want that logical flow of ideas. Look for things that don't follow that and convert them to make them more logical.
Okay. In your writing, can you give us an example of a little snippet of what you've done in the past to get that flow, that ideas working together?
When it comes to a book, it's very easy. Hire a good editor that's 10 times as smart as you are and do what they tell you to do.
That's right.
But I must admit, I thought I was a good writer. I thought I was a good communicator. For this current book that is just coming out right now, this wonderful, wonderful editor named Joan Tapper brought her in, and I ate a lot of humble pie there. I mean, there was a lot of red ink.
Right.
And a lot of that red ink had to do with the logical flow of ideas and keep everything tied together in a very, very nice format. So I sort of learned that way. And again, one of the best things that I could say is not only depend upon yourself, because after all, you're the person that caused the issue in the first place. Sure, you want to take a look at it, but if you have coworkers, if you have a spouse, if you have an offspring, whoever it may be that may be able to take a look at your work, focusing at the moment just on that issue. Is this logical? Does each paragraph have a connection to the next?
Right. That makes sense. That makes sense. Thanks.
Okay, the next one, tip number 4, is make sure that you've achieved appropriate clarity of your fundamental message. That you are writing something, whether it's a book, whether it's a journal article, whether it's an email, whether it's even a text, there's a basic core message that's coming out of it. And you want to make sure that that core message is pronounced and that it is clear. And one of the best ways in my mind to make that core message clear is to state it right at the outset. I'm sending you an email, Mitch, and you get them from me a couple dozen a week, so you certainly know all about that. I usually basically start it by saying, I am writing to clarify, I am writing to provide this information that you're going to need for the following, or whatever. So I've set the table before I've said another word.
Right.
And therefore, not only in your reading is there going to be greater clarity, but in my subsequent writing there's going to be greater clarity, because now I'm staying focused on why I'm doing this and not submitting to the temptation to try to say too much about too many different things.
Right. So it all ties to the initial purpose.
Goes back to the purpose.
Right.
Always, always, always.
Very good.
Keep it clean, okay? And the last thing is very interesting as well. When you're proofing, look for any potential ambiguities and misperceptions. In my book, I use an awful lot of personal anecdotes, often self-effacing ones when I've done something wrong to prove my point. And there's a lovely woman, I'm not going to use her name, but she's down in Nashville, Tennessee, where I went to college many, many decades ago. And I've always thought the highest of her, but a very sweet, very talented person. And she once sent me an email, and I looked at it and said, oh man, why is she saying this? And I wrote her back sort of a defensive response. And then she called me, and she said, you know, emails are crazy. It is so easy for somebody to misinterpret something in email. I didn't mean anything negative whatsoever, but it may have come across that way as you were reading the email. A little different face to face. You can see a person's facial expressions.
Sure.
But an email or just any sort of communication, written communication with somebody, it's easy to fall into things that could be seen as an ambiguity or be seen or be accepted as a misconception by the other party. So what you need to do then is, when you're proofing, to go through and constantly ask yourself the question, is this clearly state what I mean, or is there any potential for this to cause a problem when no problem is intended?
Right.
And a lot of times, and this is something we'll talk about in subsequent weeks, because I have several chapters that touch on it, but sometimes it's the use of inappropriate words. There can be a word that I bring up all the time is the word problem. Man, don't use the word problem, use the word opportunity. Mm-hmm. Problem it's a negative word. It's just to the other party you have a problem with them. Right. Opportunity is just the other party, hey, if we work together, we can make good things happen in everybody's best interest. So I think it's really important to watch the words that you're using, but most importantly, just to go through it and ask yourself the question, can this be misinterpreted?
So it sounds as though, if I'm hearing you correctly, as you look at the written word, where there's no tone, all it is the word. Choose your words carefully.
Always.
Make sure, because you don't know what's happening on the other end there, where someone might misinterpret and take something in a way that it wasn't intended.
Wring those negative words out of your vocabulary.
There you go.
No need for them. Be Miss or Miss Positive.
Very good. Okay. Any other closing tips or anything else you want to expand on?
I think that's it for now. I want to remind everybody again a couple things.
Okay.
One is a reminder again, when you are done watching the video in a couple minutes, if you have a question, we want to see it. It'll help us, help you, and help other people presumably, and there's going to be a prize. We haven't figured that one out quite yet. Secondly is we're newbies to having a YouTube channel, but it's our understanding that there's much to be gained by having a large subscriber base, and it's a win-win, because subscribers can do it for free, and they get alerts every time we have a new content that has been published. So I want to encourage everybody, if you like the content of this particular episode, to click subscribe and be a subscriber to our YouTube channel. Very, very important to us. Along the same lines, I'm told that the masters of the YouTube universe really like YouTube channels that get a lot of likes. So we urge you to hit the old like button if you like the presentation. It would mean a lot to us. So please do that as well. So those three things. And been talking about my book, and Mitch has a book that's a few months behind it. Mitch, you want to talk about that a little bit? How to order it?
Sure,
what it's about?
Sure. And Frank, your book should be available mid-April of 2020, and you'll be able to find that on our website. You can see the link at the bottom of the page. It's www.77grp, short for group.com, 77grp.com, to order Frank's book starting in mid-April. And it'll be available in soft or paperback and hardcover. So make sure you get yourself a copy. And like Frank said, it really is a great companion to what we're doing here on YouTube. You can probably get by with one and not the other, but when you got them both together, you've got the full package. And just so you know, the book, both of our books, we tried to craft them in a similar fashion so they're very easy to read, a little bit of humor, very relatable, short chapters. We don't want you to get bogged down with a real heavy lift or anything like that as you're reading through it. And again, works as a great companion to what we're doing here on YouTube. So make sure you pick up Frank's book starting in April of 2020, available in paperback and hardcover. And my book as well will be coming out a few months later. We wanted to stagger them like that because we know that the volume of and the wealth of expertise and insight is going to take a little time to digest for both of our books. But my book, 77 Exceptional Ways to Build Leadership, Relationships that Inspire Others to Become Great. That book will be out probably in the summer sometime, and that is currently under construction, and we'll be heading over to the editors before too long. And then next week, our next episode, we're going to be talking, or I'll be talking to you about leadership along with Frank. We'll be covering some more of the basics. Last week we talked about check your commitment to make sure you're ready to take on a role as a leader. And next week we'll be talking about being honest with everyone at all costs, every time. Why honesty is so important, not only in a leadership role, but in any interpersonal relationship that you have in life. If you want to establish credibility, make sure you are known as a truth teller. What else you got, Frank?
Oh, very good. We're closing now. I wanted to once again thank the Granada Hotel, the iconic Granada Hotel and Bistro in the heart of downtown San Luis Obispo, for letting us stay at and use their facilities. Appreciate that. And a special thing that we are doing with our episodes is we are closing every episode with a personal thought of the day from each of us, just sort of something, a value that we have that we just wanted to pass on to our universe. So, Mitch?
Well, here's what I got for you. And also, by the way, if you're coming to San Luis Obispo, make sure you check out the Granada Hotel and Bistro. It is fabulous here. And make sure you say hi to Molly down at the front desk. She'll take very good care of you. We've got their website and their phone number posted down below. Make sure you give them a call if you're heading this way. So in closing, my thought for you this week is keep in mind that a kind word to a person that you know or perhaps a stranger goes a long way. So when you have an opportunity to share something nice, somebody's got a nice outfit on, or they look good on a particular day, or you appreciate the work that they do, make sure you let them know. It'll go a long way.
Okay, and my final thought of the day is to really appreciate and be kind to animals. It's a bit of a different value than I shared the previous two episodes, but one of the great blessings in my life is that I've had the pleasure of owning 3 different Labrador Retrievers. The current one is 12 years old, the love of my life, the love of my wife's life, and the love of our son's life, named Brava. And you know, we love her, but through that love, we also recognize how precious all animals are, and how they're so often mistreated and neglected. And anybody that can reach out and be kind and loving to animals, I think it's you know, it's a real win-win thing for us. So
Amen.
I'd like to share that, and that brings us to the end of episode number 3. And Mitch will be on board next week on his topic, and we again thank everybody that has taken the time to view this week's episode, and look forward to seeing you again. So thank you very much.
See you next week, everybody.